Welcome, everyone, to the Speed City F1 post-qualifying show for the Monaco Grand Prix. Very exciting qualifying. Got to see Lando Norris get his mojo back and put himself on the pole in Monaco, the most important pole of the season. This is Jon Massengale, joined by Jonathan Green and Chris Medland, live in Monaco. Jonathan, I'll start with you. This is just what the doctor ordered for Lando Norris.
I was about to say, it's not just the most important pole position of the season because of the streets. It's absolutely the most important pole for Norris and his title hopes. He was starting to slip away, lose confidence, question himself. We, I suppose, without saying it out loud, were kind of questioning whether he could stay with Piastri, and Verstappen keeps winning. And yeah, I mean, that was top draw. I don't think I've seen a better Monaco qualifying than that.
Wow. Well, I hear your microphone lighting up out there, Chris Medland. Give us your eyes and ears, buddy.
Oh, it's a tough life to be here, I tell you that, having to cover this sport sometimes for you guys. But I am in the F1 paddock, which is split here in Monaco. So you have all of the engineering work that goes on in the pit lane and above the garages. Normally, we'd be behind that with all the hospitality units. But here, because it's so compact, all the hospitality units line up down one side of the harbour. So I'm down there by the media pen where a number of the drivers are coming in now, debriefing. Lots of VIPs and guests as well, milling around, trying to get a glimpse of drivers, which makes it very hard for me to stick a microphone into some of them. But, yeah, this will be a show when you get lots of, I imagine, feedback on the microphone as different people wander by or I bump into everyone. But I agree with Greenie. I think that was a great session, a great performance from Lando as well, just when he needed it the most. And he broke a few hearts around here, I tell you. There was almost like a big groan in the media centre from all the local journalists when Leclerc was pipped.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. I was really excited when Leclerc crossed and had the pole provisionally. But as soon as Lando did it, I realized the implications of that as well and got just as excited. You know, it's Jonathan, I said just what the doctor ordered, but you know, this is such a big deal for Lando with Piastri leading the championship and looking so much quicker than him virtually all season long, just about. And now that he snatched this is amazing for him.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the exuberance of Zak Brown screaming almost with joy. But now there's some really, really heavy strategy thinking going on. This team is at the sharp end, both cars where they need to be. It's going to be hard to overtake. There is the double pit stop. Now we look at the strategy. Ferrari, I mean, are inches away. Hamilton looked good. Verstappen, you can never count him out. So I think to get away from Monaco as a 1-2 or at least a 1-3 for McLaren needs some thought now.
Yeah. And, you know, you brought up something that's going to be it's such a huge deal that we now have 2 pit stops required at Monaco. And you and I were talking about it, Greenie, yesterday, and trying to decide how much impact this could really make. But I want to get your take, Chris Medland, because you're on the ground with this. And what's everybody been saying about this requirement for 2 pit stops in Monaco?
Yeah, just apologies while I make sure that my signal works, because of all things, Pirelli has just tried to connect to my phone, the Wi-Fi, and it might cut me off. So I don't know if you can still hear me right now.
Yeah, we got you. We got you, buddy.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's good. It's funny. I've just managed to get it to close because I was in the exact right spot, though, as you said that, by Pirelli. And yeah, it's going to completely open things up because teams aren't sure which way to go with it. You have to do 2 pit stops. You might want to do one early and get it out of the way, the first one out of the way, and then look to pick your time for a second one when there might be a safety car, there might be an interruption. But if you run long, waiting for one of those to happen and it never comes, or you get a late red flag and that's the end of the race because of time constraints, then you're going to get a big penalty, lose a lot of time. If you do them both early on, then you can find yourself at the back of the field and it's still impossible to overtake. And if that safety car never happens, then you might not get to close up that gap again. There's just so many permutations. It was really well explained by Oscar Piastri actually on Thursday. He came out of the first strategy briefing that McLaren had done, trying to say to him, look, here's all of the different scenarios, and there's so many. And he said he was still trying to untwist his head after hearing so many different options, essentially. He just said it's almost impossible. You cannot call it. You've just got to react on the fly. And if the race runs clean and easy, and there's no big interruptions in that sense, then I actually think the teams will have a plan in place for the two stops where it should mean the front runners are all pushing a bit harder to create gaps to pit into. But it's those interruptions that could really just then flip everything on its head. And I wouldn't be quite as disappointed or quite as delighted, depending on where I qualified today, because this could still really mix things up.
Yeah. Well, so I'm excited about this. Chris, what's the sentiment about this across all the teams? I mean, and particularly team managers, team principals, are they saying that they think that this will be an exciting thing for the fans?
Yeah, certainly that it's going to give everyone a headache, but there's no one who's seeing it as artificial or anything like that, because one thing that's the same is you still just have to use two different tire compounds. You have to use three different sets, but you can still do a race on just the medium and hard tires, for example. You don't have to use all three compounds. So you still have that strategic, certainty that you can go with the tires you want to use the most if you've managed to save them. But it's just about the timing of those stops. And it is equal. It's the same for everyone in that sense that you might get lucky, you might not, but you all know the rules beforehand going into it. And it just adds an extra variable that this race actually does need, doesn't it? Because normally we're sat here and we would know that if Norris got off the line cleanly tomorrow, he'd win that race as long as he doesn't put it in the wall. And you can avoid going in the wall by driving some 10 seconds off the pace.
Chris, has anybody compromised tire-wise? Has anybody not got what they want?
Not that I've seen so far. I'll admit, I Pirelli only send round at the end of each day or going into the race, they'll send us a document that says, here's what's left. If I pull up the document that they sent us earlier today, it would have been this morning after what was FP2, and he keeps trying to talk to find the actual right page, but here we go. We've got so many different documents they send us. If you are Red Bull, you've only got one set of the hard tyre left, same with Leclerc. And then, to be honest, actually, most teams went with that approach of keeping just one set of the hard tyre for the race. So Aston Martin, Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, and the two McLarens both had two sets still to use. But that was after FP2. So I'm trying to recall if they even used them in FP3. But even if they didn't, they might have given them back. They have to choose which tyres they return. So I think most are looking at it. They just want one set of hards and some mediums to use. But at that point, to be fair, there was only one new set of mediums for McLaren. So maybe they're thinking they're going to use two new sets of hards. I must admit, we're going to have to wait for that to get updated tomorrow morning to see who wants to use what and when. But again, that shows there is definitely differences there. Let's put it that way, between what teams have kept back at the end of at least FP2. And therefore, that suggests that they see it playing out potentially in different ways. And there's a big element of risk involved for all.
Yeah, speaking of tires, looking at the Williams team and them experimenting with the medium tires, and I was thinking about this new C6 compound that we've got, comparing it to last week, how Alonso and Stroll both were able to take advantage of the medium tire last week, but it looked like that's not the same this week, and in fact, they had James Vowles on the ESPN broadcast, and he was talking about that specifically, of how it looked like that the soft tire was just going to be the one here. And so, Graney, I mean, you were watching that. What do you think happened with Carlos Sainz versus Albon? Albon looked noticeably quicker.
Yeah, I heard the same. I heard the interview with Vowles, and it was interesting because he just felt that Albon on the warming up of the tires was just doing a better job than Sainz, and that may be all there is the difference. And that that's where we are at the moment in Formula One. It's that close, and Albon may be just a little less aggressive and just finding the sweet. I mean, Vowles described it as he just was, just found the sweet spot, but there's not a lot between them.
Yeah. Chris, what's your take on that?
I thought it was really interesting to see, Albon's lap time in Q2, if it was him getting the tyres in the right window. He couldn't replicate that at all in Q3. He was half a second off, wasn't he? So that was the only driver that failed to do that. And as you say, using the medium at certain times, but then going back to the soft. McLaren's obviously doing 2 laps on the soft and finding time with the second lap on them. So I think we definitely saw that C6 is much more usable as a qualifying tyre here than it was in Imola because of the high-speed corners at Imola, where it just didn't give you the grip, actually. It couldn't hold on for a whole lap, whereas here, you don't have that problem with high-speed corners. So it was able to stand up to the test a little bit better. And I think anyone really experimenting, some made it work. We saw Alonso as well use the medium in qualifying to get through to Q3. But I do think it was much more likely that you went towards that C6. And as Johnny says, that it's just about getting it in the window, but just getting your lap clean, because the slightest mistake around here and people are lifting or having to back out of a corner, because otherwise you end up in the wall. So you lose a big chunk of time rather than you run slightly wide over a curb and lose half a tenth, for example.
Yeah. Well,
you have to. I mean, I want to take a step back and say, look at where Williams are. They have two fantastic drivers on the top of their game. They've brought Williams back into the top four, or at least knocking on the door. And they've got Colapinto in reserve, just learning his way for another team.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from James Vowles being able to do this. But hey, let me just run down the qualifying today, because with Lando Norris on pole, we talked about it a bunch, and Charles Leclerc right behind him. Let me just run down the rest. Piastri in third, Hamilton, Verstappen in fifth, Hadjar in sixth. Nice run. Alonso, who was happy on the radio with his and sounded exhausted. Then Ocon in eighth, Lawson making it into the top 10, and Albon in 10th, and Carlos Sainz 11th, Yuki Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Russell, Antonelli, who crashed, and Bortoleto, Behrman, Gasly, Stroll, and Colapinto. So it was, but the standouts, of course, like you said, Williams. But look, Isaac Hadjar once again, looking good, Jonathan.
Yeah, in fact, the RB team again. I mean, this is this is one of those levelers because it really is truly about the drivers. It's not about overall power, and so it really does come down to strategy and the ability, the dexterity of each of the drivers. And Hadjar and Lawson put in great performances, especially Lawson, because people have been doubting. I've been reading a lot of the news from New Zealand, and they really have got a downer on him because of the move back down to Red Bulls, and already gossip about Hadjar moving up to replace Tsunoda. So every weekend is critical for those two drivers, both good and bad. Hadjar continues to be the revelation in many ways. With Antonelli out, Behrman obviously given a penalty, but I thought that was harsh. But of the new boys, Hadjar continues outside of Australia to be the most consistent.
Yeah, nice run from Ocon. And I heard that Ted Kravitz was reporting that the Haas F1 team did something interesting. So when Ocon came into pit, when they swapped the tires, they left the wheel off for a bit, and let the hubs cool down, and gain that little temperature advantage there. So I thought that was good, and put Ocon into the top 10. Of course, Behrman, not only with that penalty that he's going to have to deal with on the Grand Prix tomorrow, not finishing great, but also I want to talk about Lewis Hamilton. Again, he's off the pace of his teammates still. Look, by 0.3. That's kind of been the number most of the year, but impressive for him to be P4. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, P4 for now. Don't forget, he's under investigation for potentially impeding Max Verstappen up at Massengale, and you could hear on the team radio messages that was a miscommunication. Essentially, his race engineer said to him, Verstappen's coming, and here's the gap. And then it's like, oh no, he's slowing down, so you don't need to worry about it. And then, of course, that turned around again to be wrong, and it's too late then. He's already in the way. So I'm actually down at Ferrari right now, but no sign of anyone talking. It's part of the problem with this split paddock is you don't even know if Fred Vasseur's in there or near here or over by the garages. But I think it was actually a solid performance from Hamilton. I give him some kind of leeway with the crash he had in FP3, because he was coming upon traffic that was at that same corner, actually, wasn't it, Massengale? And he lost the rear. And I think that was partly some dirty air, a reaction to the cars in front as well, a few things combining. And then he's got to kind of put that out of his mind straight into qualifying with a car that had been changed and repaired. So it probably didn't feel identical to what he was running before that. But he was in such a good mood after yesterday. He was so happy. He thought in his own driving he had a bit of time to find and he could get close to Leclerc. Didn't do it today in the end. But I think if he stays fourth, if that doesn't turn into a penalty for impeding, then I think that's a really good result for him, actually. And it might not be enough to get him on the podium tomorrow. It might be that, again, he loses more ground to his teammate. But I think it's exactly what he would need. It's just like a solid weekend.
Yeah. Hey, I want to talk about George Russell. Obviously, he had an issue. He got stuck in the tunnel, which is so scary always to think about, because one, I was watching the speeds as they enter the tunnel. They're going in at about 75 miles an hour. And when they come out, they're going about 175 miles an hour. But George Russell hit a curb and lost connection with something in the power unit, right? I mean, it's so funny. You think that's such a basic thing. I envision either a simple broken connector or something coming loose, but that's such a shame for George Russell, Greeny.
Oh, no question. I mean, for Mercedes, they said on 5 Live, or Damon Hill said, disaster. That is the right word. In other words, for Mercedes, Monaco is complete write-off. I mean, there's really not a lot they can do from there. I mean, their only hope really now is scoring a point, maybe. And I mean, I'm being realistic. People have flown through. There can always be a chance of weather, but I don't, it's not predicted. And so, yeah, qualifying has really done them in.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's get a quick break in. And when we come back, we'll continue to break down the Monaco Grand Prix qualifying right after this.
I'm going to jump off right on the break to hopefully record with Zach.
Okay, go ahead. All right, let's see what's going on the YouTubes here. TW's here. He says, didn't expect that from Lando. Yeah, nice. Hit the like button, he says. Hit the like and the subscribe, all that typical YouTube stuff. Kevin Kelly, track record for Lando. Yeah, I saw that, KK. Bill Rickers here. He said that got lively at the close of Q3. Absolutely. And let's see. TW has a question. He says, what constitutes a pit stop? Could you do a stop, go, no tires? That's a really darn good question. Greeny?
I like that.
Yeah, we'll ask Chris too when he comes back. There's Andy P. I figured Andy would be here with Lando on the pole. He says, what an effort from Lando there. Thought Charles had it. Special stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I did too. I thought Leclerc had it. I really did. I thought he had it. I was very excited for that, but
yeah, we didn't really see all of Lando's lap. I'd like to go back now and see it from on board.
Yep. Get your F1 TV fired up for that. Who did Chris say he was going to grab?
Zak Brown.
Nice.
Hey, here's a subject matter. What about the double?
Oh, yeah. Who?
Well, McLaren.
Yeah, okay.
They're on the front row. Indy as well.
Yep. Man, it's been hard to keep Indy out of the timeline. We're trying to focus on Formula One with all of the crazy stuff from Penske, and then the Wienermobile race. That was crazy. All right, here we go.
I didn't see that, but
All right, welcome back, Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. We are talking about the Monaco Grand Prix qualifying Formula One and its marquee event, I would have to say. And of course, qualifying being such a big part of that, because typically the person on the pole has really front row is almost a lock to win this race. But there is a little spice of that second pit stop that's going to be required. But Jonathan, let's talk about the qualifying here. We've talked about a lot of the top 10. We haven't really, we just mentioned that Max Verstappen is in P5, but he's actually 7/10 off of Lando Norris's pole lap. That's actually surprising, considering that Max looked fast all weekend.
yeah, and I was just sort of absolutely watching in amazement as that car looks so steady, so twitchy, but in control. And he was inches, I mean, millimeters away from the wall at every time. I was literally holding my breath. But that is the true pace, because there's no question that Max was absolutely on it. But half a second just over is where that Red Bull is in comparison to the McLaren Mercedes.
Yeah, and look at Sonoda down in 12th. So there's proof in the pudding there. And you talk about the fact that he was just so close to the wall, right? Well, how many drivers did we see, as usual, kiss the barriers? That's one of my favorite things to watch in Formula One, is they just brush that barrier. I mean, literally. Imagine trying to do that at, what are they going? So somewhere like 60, 80 miles an hour on some of those corners. And they come within, either a millimeter or just barely touch it. It seems inhuman, like impossible, doesn't it?
I got a good story for you. I covered GP2 and GP3 at Monaco, and on the exit of the pool section where you jink right and then go close to the barrier, where that barrier is at ground level is where the media center for F2 is.
Yeah.
And they are literally coming at you. If you remember, that's where Mick Schumacher went off in the Haas. So you're right. I mean, that barrier, you can stroke it, you can push it back, but you can't do much else, because otherwise you'll end up like Mick.
Hey, Chris Medland, I hear your microphone going. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, I'm making my way back down to the scrum near the broadcast compound, but I have managed to catch up with a very happy McLaren team principal, Zak Brown. So I should probably keep an eye on my phone to be able to tell if Casey
we're ready.
Oh, perfect. Well, he managed to. I managed to stop him in McLaren hospitality before he disappeared, and he's got a big 24 hours ahead. Zak, thanks for joining us. We've got a few minutes left on the show, and I imagine you're a very happy man right now. First and third, but your first pole since 2007 here in Monaco.
Yeah, team's done a great job. Strategy was good. Car's fast. Then Lando and Oscar, they nailed it. It's good we had the second lap because we needed it.
What about Lando? That's his first pole since Melbourne. There's been times where it's like qualifying's actually let him down a little bit, or where he's lost out to Oscar. So how important do you think this is going to be for his confidence?
It's critical, because this is the hardest track in the world to qualify on. So if you're going to kind of make a comeback since Australia, this is the one to do it in. So spoke with him briefly when he got out of the car. He's a happy racing driver.
And what about the other one then, Oscar? How's he feeling?
I'm sure he's a little less happy. He's got to be happy with P3, because you can win from there, and he's done a great job, and the margin was so close. But number one guy will always be a little bit happier than the number two or the number three or the number four, but they both did a great job.
Did it take the pressure off a bit that's Leclerc in between you and not Verstappen as well?
Not necessarily, because I think Leclerc has been mega all weekend, so I kind of felt he's the biggest threat. I think he still is the biggest threat. I think all top five cars, I kind of predicted the top five, but I stopped short of saying in what order they would be in. But they're all monsters at the front, so you got to watch them all.
So you've got a car on pole at the Monaco Grand Prix tomorrow. You've got a car on the front row at the Indy 500 tomorrow. Will you get any sleep tonight?
Very little.
I'm
ready.
I was going to say, what's the hope? Because can you win both of these, do you think?
Yeah, I think we can. My hope is we win tomorrow. Indianapolis rains out. I get there and I watch a victory on Monday. That's my dream scenario, but there's nothing I can do about the weather.
Well, and if it's not rained out, I guess you wouldn't mind watching a race win from Monaco, but would you then get yourself straight over to Indy to celebrate afterwards anyway?
Yeah, I'm going to Indy regardless. So, what would be nice is if one of the guys on the team sent me a little bit of milk, should we get some.
All right, well, good luck tomorrow. We'll catch up with you before the race.
Thank you.
Oh, nice.
There's a tradition at Monaco. I say a tradition, but we tend to do it. The media centre is just above Stars and Bars, and we often go straight. Once we the people who don't work like me and just ponce about and do interviews, unlike Chris, who actually does writing, we go down to Stars and Bars, have a beer, and watch the 500.
Well, do you want to know the sad part, Johnny Green? Apart from the fact that, yes, that's true. I'm normally working for about 4 hours after qualifying, 5 hours after a race. But Stars and Bars is no more.
That's right.
So it's not a place you can watch the Indy 500 anymore. But the Monaco Grand Prix organisers, now we're no longer in the era of Bernie Ecclestone, are allowed and do put the Indy 500 on the old TV in the media centre from the French broadcaster. So we do get to
you'll
watch
turn
it
Bernie's hair white.
Yeah, exactly. Like back in Bernie's day, that would never
happen. No one could say the word, Indy.
No, I must say, fair play to McLaren as well. They normally put on a watch party for people to try and go down and watch it there, because it's a great festival of racing, isn't it? But annoyingly, it's already bad enough that we've got the clash, and next year it won't be Monaco and Indy clashing. Hopefully there'll be no F1 race clashing with the 500. But I know for fans it's still a great day. But the fact we're in a triple header here, and the teams will have to get themselves to Barcelona, means they need to start packing down instantly to get out of Monaco, because logistically it's a nightmare. So it means they can't even put the race on in the McLaren hospitality, because that thing's going to be in pieces. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I overheard, I'm going to steal Nate Saunders from ESPN's line that he got from Zak Brown, actually, just before I interviewed Zak. But I did overhear that Zak is going to go back and watch it in the hotel, so that he's in one place and set and can just watch the race properly, rather than be running around or potentially missing it at any stage.
That's great.
Makes sense.
Hey, I want to talk about Oscar Piastri. You know, Zak Brown mentioned that he's less happy, but Oscar didn't sound like Lando. You know, I know he's still leading the championship in a different position, but he didn't sound like Lando after Lando not winning pole, watching his teammate. But I did find it was interesting that Piastri said he hit more walls this weekend than he has in his entire career.
Well, that his car looks so tail happy. I mean, he was swinging that wide. That Rascas one time, he almost got sideways. You know, on his first.
He was sideways to a degree. So
yeah. I actually think if that is how his car is, and obviously it'll be different with full fuel and all the rest of it, but you've got to start thinking. I know it's early in the year, but you know, I think if you are Piastri, you go, look, stay in third, defend third. Don't worry about anything else. I'm leading the championship. I need points now.
Yeah. Hey, and speaking of Piastri, he did hit the wall, he said, in Q1. And also, let's not forget, that's what happened to Antonelli. He kissed the wall, except he went beyond a kiss because it peeled the tire off. You know, apparently that's just, I've seen that a handful of times. That's not that uncommon there, where you hit those barriers just enough where it just peels the tire right off the rim, and then then he hits the wall on the other side because he has no control of the car. But hey, Chris, any updates from FIA on any of the investigation? I guess the big one is Verstappen and Hamilton.
Yeah, so that one is starting right this second. It's 5:55 p.m. local time, and that's where pre-race show tomorrow. And I'll do some tweeting as well. Pre-race show tomorrow, and I'll do some tweeting as well, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Jonathan, did you see the interview, the post-qualifying interview with Lando Norris when he was asked when he was asked a question about when his lap was taken back? And
I know.
He for a moment he thought he'd lost the pole. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did, and he kind of questioned Jolien, going, "What?" I just shows you how much it meant to him, though. It really did. And he, like I said, we may look back in three or 4 months and go, "God, that was the day that he got his mojo back." Because up until this point, in the last swathe of races, Piastri has just looked the better driver, and so we do have a really, really intense battle on our hands.
And Chris, you go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say something I wanted to ask Zak, but I had to be careful with his time, and I'll put it to him tomorrow pre-race if I can grab him on the grid. But strategically, it's still going to be a headache for McLaren. We talk about this two-stop. It's not going to be simple, and it's not just the fact that even if you're on pole, you could get unlucky or someone further back could gamble, but you can't stack your cars in the pit lane. It's too tight. You're going to lose too much time. If everyone wants to pit on the same lap, the pit lane's going to be hectic and you're going to lose loads of time. So realistically, you're going to pit on different laps with your drivers, even if there's an obvious lap to pit, if there's an incident or whatever. So someone could end up losing out big time. And that could be Piastri as the second car on the road if that scenario unfolds. And therefore, this qualifying result could actually be even more damaging for him. But similarly, he might just get, dare I say, a little bit lucky in terms of maybe pit stop timing or strategy timing because it's so complex for teams. And he could still go and win it. And that's the bit that actually I think is going to be fascinating tomorrow. We could end up with a number of drivers that are very unhappy, but more ruining their luck. And as teams, it's going to be hard for them to maybe explain why there was nothing more they could do, even if they've actually cost them potentially, or it seems like they've cost them positions.
Chris, there's a theory that if you take your first pit stop literally after the first lap, when everybody's still together, and therefore slower, that you'll gain some time that you won't get mid-race. Is that something that somebody might try?
Oh, absolutely, but further back. I mean, Mercedes, for example, I'd expect to see do something like that. There's actually a theory that you do it with both, that you start on, say the soft tyre, do one lap, hit for a medium, do 1 lap, stick on the hand, and run to the end of the race.
Wow.
Because if it comes to you, you're not going to get overtaken if it's moved you far forward. And all that would need is a well-timed safety car or virtual safety car, probably a full safety car, to be honest. But it also could totally backfire that you put yourself right to the back, and everyone else might get a free stop under a red flag, for example. So it comes with risk, but that's why if you're outside the top 10, you would take that risk. It would be worth it. Someone at the front, you wouldn't do that because you're just giving away track position that you might never get back.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Chris, we just got a few seconds left. Have you seen any of the usual cavalcade of stars and celebrities?
You know, not that many. I saw Patrick Dempsey was here earlier.
Yep,
there's a great list of personnel, but most of them arriving tomorrow. It's not a huge number that I've seen in person so far. But as I say, because it's split here, quite often they're off on yachts doing much more fun things, and we're just in this small caged-in hospitality area.
All right. Well, hey guys, we're out of time. Thanks everybody for tuning in, of course. And tomorrow morning, we get started with a pre-race show at 8 a.m. Eastern, and then the race right here on Channel 81 tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. Thanks, Chris Medland. Thanks.